This episode of Buy Black Podcast is brought to you by Haptic Consulting. Haptic Consulting specializes in maximizing the value your organization gets from its training budget by focusing on business needs, eliminating unnecessary training development, and helping you build a culture of engagement from the executive level down. Visit www.hapticconsulting.com to learn how I can help you develop better leaders, happier employees, and a more profitable company culture. Or you can email me at gerald@hapticconsulting.com. That's GERALD@hapticconsulting.com. Now let's get into the show.
And I did that by staying on my full-time job, and I looked at my 24-hour cycle of existence. That meant I looked at every day and how many hours I have in it to commit to my family and how much time I could actually commit to building my business. And that's what I did. I stayed on my job, and I'm still on my job, and I love my job. I love what I do. And I built a business based on the amount of time that I had to devote towards building the business.
Buy Black Podcast, episode 32. Don't quit your day job. How to leverage existing income to get your business off the ground debt-free with Dr. Julian Thomas. Welcome to Buy Black, the only podcast dedicated to helping you find, connect with, and support Black-owned businesses. We're on a mission to bring consumers and business owners together to ignite the global Black economy. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you're a Black business owner or a socially conscious consumer, you've joined the right community. Ready? Let's get to work. Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another great episode of Buy Black Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking to Major Dr. Julian Thomas, who's the founder of Total Leadership Solutions consulting firm, and he specializes in leadership consulting. Before we get into this show with Dr. Thomas, I wanted to give you guys an update on where we are with our ratings and reviews. You guys are really putting in work out there, and I really appreciate your support. We are up to 17 5-star reviews in iTunes. We also have 12 5-star reviews with the Apple app. Follow closely over on the Google Play Store with 11 5-star reviews. And this week, we just got our first 5-star review in Stitcher. So this was left 6 days ago by TBJ7. It says, "This is a really good podcast. It offers a lot of valuable information that is easy to understand. I'm glad that I came across it and will continue to listen." Well, hey, TBJ7, thanks for being out there, and thanks for being the first person to drop us a review in Stitcher. For everybody listening to the show, it doesn't matter what platform you listen on, whether you've downloaded the app, whether you're listening on Apple, whether it's Stitcher, whether it's any other platform, Radio Public, wherever you listen, if you have the ability to drop us a 5-star review, please do so. It helps other people find the show, helps other people find the content, and join the community along with us. So with that, let's move on. I don't want to take up too much of your time today because Dr. Thomas drops 10, 11, 12, 15 golden gems during this episode where he talks about how he started his business while still keeping his day job in order to prevent going deep into debt in order to start his own company, and also to prepare himself for the day when eventually that day job is going to have to come to an end. So there's a lot of great information in this episode for us, and I just want to get straight into it. Hey guys, welcome back to Buy Black, your only podcast dedicated to helping you find and connect with Black-owned businesses. Today we are recording episode number 32, and I am here with Dr. Julian Thomas to talk about his entrepreneurship journey and his leadership coaching company called Total Leadership Solutions. Dr. Thomas, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Glad to get an opportunity to kind of share some insight about what it is that we do as a company, and also there's some insight about how we got started as a business and some of the challenges with that and some of the things that we've learned along the way that could possibly be fruitful to some of the listeners out there.
That sounds good.
Just glad to be on the show.
Yeah, and for those of you out there listening, so this is a testament to networking and opportunities here. So not too long ago, near the end of February, actually, Dr. Thomas and I were both kind of sitting on a panel at a during a Black History Month event at the Air Force Base that we both happen to work at. And so after this panel, we got to talking, we exchanged information, and then we connected to talk on the phone a couple times after that, and saw a real opportunity to collaborate. Leadership coaching, leadership consulting is something that I'm very interested in expanding my role in, and Dr. Thomas already has that going on. And then, of course, I've already got the podcast, and he's interested in connecting with more business owners locally around the country and kind of expanding that. So, we met by chance, and of course, the way networking always works, you find out that there's so many different ways that we can help each other out. So, just for everybody sitting out there, you never know what thing you're going to say yes to that's going to lead you to the next person that you can help or they can help you out. So always be on the lookout for those networking opportunities. But enough about me running my mouth. Dr. Thomas, or Julian, as we normally talk on the phone, I just want to hand it over to you. Talk to us, let the people know a little bit about you, tell us your background, and let's get into it.
All right. So, I'm a military member, Air Force guy. Been serving now for over 20 years. I've been serving as leadership capacities as a commissioned officer in the Air Force, and that journey has taken me to places that I would have never imagined that I'd be able to go, and it also has given me the opportunity to serve thousands of people in capacities that I never thought that I'd be able to serve in. And one of those roles was the role of leadership, and at just about every stop along the way, I was serving in some type of leadership capacity. And that all kind of culminated when I was assigned down in Alabama and had the opportunity to not only serve in leadership capacity, but also to teach young commissioned officers through a very, very regimented training program of how to lead and how to be effective at it. One of the things that we pride ourselves on as a military force is being able to shape and develop leaders that will have the wherewithal, that will have the core competencies that are needed to be able to do what the nation has called us to do, which is protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And it takes a bit of effort to instruct, especially as it relates to leadership, because leadership is not an exact, science, but it's more of an art. The art of influencing people, getting people to do what sometimes they want to do and sometimes don't want to do, and getting that influence in such a way that your impact is felt and that people can really grab hold of the vision or the goal or whatever you're trying to achieve, and do that in a way that's inspiring and motivating to get whatever job it is, whatever task it is done. That being said, I found that during that time of training these young minds and helping develop leaders, I had a knack for it. And so it led me, after years of teaching, instructing, and reviewing, writing, developing curriculum concerning leadership, that I'd be able to take that and use my own gifting, take my core competencies and my own ability, and start a company outside of the military, to be able to leverage that expertise and that experience and make my gift marketable. Because that's what we do as entrepreneurs. We take our natural inborn talent, our natural gift, and our natural ability, and we monetize it so that it'll work for us. And so I had some help along the way, and so that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. It was birthed out of a instructor experience that I had years ago. So what I've done over the past few years is I've developed my own curriculum. I went down and joined with John Maxwell and got some experience through his company and with him, and got some training that I needed and some certifications that would help me in my own journey. And I started Total Leadership Solutions. And what we specialize in is leadership development, personal development, and coaching. And through our website, www.dr.julianthomas, that's dr.julianthomas.com, is our portal for all things leadership. And so there's some challenges trying to put everything together and produce a model of instructional, and then and that would be appealing and attractive to business people and people in the ecumenical community, which is your churches and people with small business organizations who needed leadership training and perhaps did not know how to develop their staffs. Well, I had to put together a model and make it attractive for those people, because I wanted to serve those people, because in those service capacities, such as businesses, such as churches, and organizations that have a structure on where they need leadership guidance and leadership training on an annual basis, they don't have a whole lot of time. And so you have to put something together that's very, very concise, but it's also applicable. And so I worked for years putting together curriculum that would best fit and serve those people. Largely today, the group or my target audience that I typically serve is churches across America. I've done leadership conferences on stages, large stages, and I've done leadership conferences on small stages. The most important thing is that everywhere we go, whenever I take my team out, everywhere we go, our aim is to add value to those organizations. Now, building this company wasn't easy. There were a lot of different things that I wish I had done before I started that would probably have helped me to fare better in the long run. But there were also other things that I did early on that helped me to be extremely effective in returning revenue into the company early on without incurring a whole lot of debt. So it's about, I know it's a long rant, but it's a little bit about my background, how I got started, where the idea get it from, and who I'm essentially serving today.
That sounds awesome. So as you were talking there, I had a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. So one, kind of your background. You've been in the military for over 20 years, and in that time, I'm over here looking at dr.julianthomas.com. I'm seeing that you've got a Bachelor of Science in Professional Aeronautics. You have a Master of Aeronautical Science. You have a Master of Military Operational Art and Science, and you have a Doctor of Theology and Biblical Studies. And through all of that education, along with your certifications, I can clearly see the kind of the educational background of how you came to be the leader and entrepreneur that you are. But I want to know kind of what is it that made you go with the name of your company, Total Leadership Solutions. Kind of how does that play into what you're trying to do with these organizations and kind of your mission as a leadership consultant?
Absolutely. Total leadership. So many companies, many nations, and many people don't really realize what the core of being a leader entails. Most folks assume that being a leader means I have some type of management position, and I've been given a certain title, and I work in a certain office, and I do certain things. Therefore, that makes me a leader. But really, at the core of it all, a leader is anyone who has influence. You can be a leader in the home, a father that wields influence over his family. Or you can be a mother in the home who wields influence over children. Or you can be there can be peer-to-peer relationships where one wields a certain level of influence over another person in order to get things done, or that person do things that they would probably normally do. And so what my company does, and the reason why I call it Total Shift Solutions, is we provide the answers to the problems that people have with wielding their influence. In other words, we help people shift their level of influence to higher levels so they're more effective in engaging and reaching other people to get them to do things that they would not normally do and do them in a followership role. That's what we do. We shift leadership. We help the manager get reluctant workers and personnel within their organizations. We help them wield their influence in such a way, make with their followers on a visceral level and on an emotional level, to where they can extract the level of productivity out of their followers that they normally wouldn't get. And so when we are able to show them our tactics and show them, those managers, our tactics, techniques, and procedures, they're able to use them in an applicable way, which causes people not only to do what they ask them to do, but also it causes them to become inspired and motivated to new levels. And that's why I call it Total Leadership Solutions. It is expanding our reach and helping people leverage their influence to shift people into action. That's what we do. So that's our focus.
That is awesome. I love that angle, because I think the biggest frustration that people have, whether it's in a workplace, whether it's in a church, whenever there's an organization where you have people who are in management roles, the biggest problems that I think the larger group of people have is that you can clearly tell the difference between a person who's a manager and somebody who's a leader. And a lot of times your leaders end up being folks who are kind of just out there in the flock. And you can pick them out very easily because they may not even intentionally be trying to influence others, but because of their actions and because of their conviction, other people kind of flock to them. Other people kind of go the direction that they go. And it's like the people, they're seeing the leadership around them, and they're wishing that the managers would lead the way that their peers are leading. And the managers, a lot of times, they don't see the importance of leadership in management. They just think, well, I have the rank, so I tell you what to do, and you're going to do it. And that's really supposed to be the end of it. But like you said, it's an art. Being a leader is a lot more about cultivating a want within people to do the things that need to get done, as opposed to just saying, well, look at what's on my shoulder. This is why you follow me. So I love that. You talked about some of those tactics and those procedures. I don't want you to give away anything that's proprietary, but talk to me. What are some of those major things that people in organizations can do to start kind of influencing better, kind of getting that shift in behaviors of the people that they're working with?
Absolutely. One of the most important things that we can do as leaders is leverage the power of emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is a buzzword that many scholars, theorists are using around the globe to really capture this phenomenon of engagement and being sensitive to the emotional needs of the people that we lead, to the point to where we can determine what their behavior is going to be based on our assessment of how they're feeling and what motivates them. And so emotional intelligence is really as it relates to leadership and leadership influence, it is a greater predictor of success than IQ. So we call emotional intelligence EQ, and that's your emotional quotient. And IQ is your intelligence quotient. Well, emotional intelligence is a better predictor of success as it relates to leadership than the IQ is. And so we find that people who are emotionally intelligent, they're able to pick up on the needs of their people much faster. They're able to engage their people at a more meaningful rate, in a more meaningful way that causes those people to be inspired and motivated. And they're able to discern and determine what approach works best, whether it's a coaching approach or whether it is a different type of leadership style that reaches a different person. So people who are emotionally intelligent knows how to harness that power that we have on the inside of each one of us. And a lot of times it's so innate and so instinctive, and it's a part of a matter of fact, we'll probably get to that later on, but it is an instinctive ability to sense what a person needs in order to be inspired. And so that's one of those aspects that if managers want to be more in touch with their people, they need to be emotionally intelligent. They need to understand how that works and how it can be an effective tool for anyone in a leadership position. And really, again, it's the capacity to be aware of, and to control and express one's emotion, and to handle interpersonal relationships in a judicious and empathetic manner. For those that are probably looking for a more concrete definition of emotional intelligence.
Right.
And so it's recognizing and understanding the emotions of how you interact with people and how they interact with you, and pulling on those strings to draw out of them what you need. So and it's the ability to manage that.
So when you're talking about this is I'm hearing it, and it's reminding me very closely. So I built and I used to teach an instructor training course, teaching people how to teach in a classroom, and the entire first module is designed around engaging adults, and specifically there it's talking about engaging adults in a learning environment, but it's the same in a working environment or a volunteer environment. What it is that adults want from whether it's a leader or a teacher or anything like that. And I talk a lot inside of that module about the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Because in a lot of leadership situations, whether it's in a company or an organization or something like that, we try to figure out what kind of carrot we want to put out there in order to get people to behave the way we want them to behave, or what kind of stick we need to put behind them to kind of force them in the direction we want them to go. And we don't spend a whole lot of, and all of that is tied around extrinsic motivation. What incentive, what bonus can I put in front of you to make you do what I want you to do, or what kind of paperwork do I have to put behind you that if you don't do it, that you're gonna, get a bag mark or something. But we don't put that time in up front of trying to figure out who is this person and where do they want to go in life, and what are their motivations, what are the things they want to be, and how can I tie the thing I need from them today directly to the place that they want to go anyway, and the thing they want to accomplish anyway. And I think that ties a lot to EQ. If you can see the people that you're working with and learn about them and actually be interested enough to find out, hey, let me not tell you what I want you to do. Let me find out what you want to do, and then wrap the things I need you to do around what it is that you want to do anyway. I think that ties a lot to EQ. Is that kind of accurate, of just kind of seeing the people that are working?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You hit it spot on. And there's been decades of research now that point to intelligence as being the critical factor that sets apart star performers from the rest of the pack. And that connection is so strong that 90% of top performers have high emotional intelligence. And so, and it's something. Emotional intelligence is something in each one of us that is it's a bit intangible, but it affects how we manage our behavior, how we navigate through social complexities, and how we make personal decisions to achieve positive results within ourselves and with other people. And so when we look at that aspect of leadership and harnessing that level of instinctive or that level of intuitiveness as it relates to leading people, if we can find ways to really figure out what motivates people and cut out the guesswork because we're using basically our gut instinct, it makes relationships much easier to manage. They're not so artificial. They're meaningful and heartfelt engagements that occur naturally with people. But now we've qualified it. We've given it a term. It is what natural leaders like Jesus, who was perhaps one of the most prolific leaders of our time. How was he able to compel others to follow him? Now, this is a man without a home. It was a man without power or prestige. How was he able to get people who were already working in different occupations to drop everything that they were doing and pick up his cause and follow him? Well, it was because he was emotionally intelligent. He was able to connect with followers in a visceral way and help them see, help, and he was able to guide them to a better place as related to living. And he offered them something that they didn't have. And he did it in such a compelling way that it caused people to abandon everything that they thought was good and right for them at the moment to pick up his cause. And that's what leaders do. If we look at all of our prominent leaders over time, Martin Luther King Jr., if we look at Nelson Mandela, if we look at even Malcolm X, and all those historical figures that we've seen over time, they all had a message, but they were all emotionally intelligent enough to connect with their followers in a visceral way. And they would use their gifts, they use their natural ability to connect to inspire people, even in the face of death and uncertain outcomes.
Wow. Wow. All right, so I'm sorry, I got one more question about this before we actually move into this isn't even the meat, y'all, by the way, of the conversation we came out here to have today. But before we move into that, I got one more question on the EQ. Can you give us a couple of examples or a couple of exercises? What can we do just as normal people out here who want to be better leaders? What kind of exercises, what things can we do to kind of practice that, to practice better EQ and maybe grow that skill? Or is that even a skill that can be grown? I'm guessing it can, because you got a whole business built around
it. Yeah, absolutely. It is a skill that can be developed over time. And I will give you the easiest part of this first. And people will say, oh, man, that is absolutely, that is so remedial. But one of the ways to use the emotional intelligence is to listen. It is to listen. Listening will take you places in your influence that you have never thought possible, because listening gives you an opportunity to really sense the core need of your followers. That's the only way to be able to detect that. It is listening. It's listening with an empathetic mindset and listening with an ear to detect what the follower actually needs from you as a leader. And so what are some of the ways we can listen better? And I know people have heard this before, I don't want to. Well, in case they haven't heard it before, I'll bring this to bear. But one of the most important things as we develop our listening skills is that we have to listen to understand as opposed to listening to respond. And most time followers, they don't necessarily, when they have problems or when the vision is unclear or when the goal or the target, the objective in their mind is unattainable and they have really, really valid concerns, most of the time they want a leader who is willing to hear their concerns. And sometimes as leaders are so fixated on the target that they don't hear what the people beneath them are saying. And that can cause frustration. And when frustration sets in, motivation becomes low, and activity becomes high. Does that make sense? So I'll explain that.
Yeah, explain that part to me.
Motivation becomes low, but activity becomes high. You ever see people do busy work?
Yes, I hate
because
busy
they
work.
Want the boss, because they want the boss to think they're productive, but they're really not engaged. They're really not being productive, but they're doing work because they have to, not because they're inspired to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, when you have a leader that does not listen to understand what the needs of their followers or what their employees are recommending as possible improvements, possible production efficiencies in that company, when a leader doesn't listen to those things and when a leader doesn't hear the needs and the concerns of their people will shut them off. They'll continue to produce, but they will only produce at the level that's required, and they'll never go above and beyond simply because the leader didn't hear their concerns. So activity goes up.
Yep, I live that.
Yeah. Yeah, activity goes up, but not productivity. Morale goes down. Productivity.
Wow.
Productivity comes about when people are engaged, when they're motivated and they're inspired to do. Productivity levels will go up. And just about any organization, if people are inspired, if the culture has been set and established to where people are excited to come to work, productivity goes up. And productivity is just focused effectiveness in whatever the job or task is to achieve new levels every day, new marks, new targets, new outcomes every day. And when you get highly productive people in an organization, you can move an organization forward. And there's nothing that an organization with a bunch of productive people cannot do. And it all starts with
I'd agree with that.
Listening, man. It starts with listening, understanding what they need, understanding how to resource those people in the right way to get them moving forward. And it all starts with listening. And that has been the challenge of most leaders. They don't listen well. And listening is a key component of emotional intelligence, is listening to the needs of the people that are beneath you so that you can target those needs and inspire them to march towards the vision of the organization. Listening.
Beautiful. So that was wonderful. I guarantee you, somebody out in this audience, aside from me, because I'm listening, and this is hitting right at home for me too. But somebody needed to hear that, so I'm glad that we were able to kind of have that conversation. I'm gonna shift gears now and come around to kind of the discussion that we kind of came together to try to bring to the community. We've already got some gold out here, but looking at the organizations that you've worked with, you're obviously in the U.S. military. You also have done a lot of work as far as leadership with faith organizations, and in all of that, you developed this company while also being active duty in the military, and you've gone about it in an organized and focused and intentional way that I think was specifically designed to do what we said last time, which was, not having all your eggs in one basket, not thinking in order to be an entrepreneur, that means you got to quit everything else, and kind of looking at building a business from scratch while leveraging, other income or other opportunities that are already in front of you. And I learned so much when we talked the first couple of times about, how I can do my business building better. And that's really what I also wanted to kind of have you talk to our audience, budding entrepreneurs who are out there in the Buy Black podcast community, as well as established business owners, how we can do it better. So, just take it away. Talk to us about how you started Total Leadership Solutions and the process that you've used to make sure that you got everything structured in a way that this is beneficial to you, to your family, and to the community without kind of being a huge source of stress.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, and I'll shut up.
No, that's a good question. Again, let me say thanks to you for what you're doing in the Buy Black podcast, man. This is phenomenal. It gives our community, the Black community, voices in a way that, in a collective way, to where we can help each other. And I tell you what, I really commend you and your program and what you're doing. This is phenomenal. And my prayer is that this thing grows and expands beyond your wildest dreams. So thanks again for this opportunity. I meant to say that earlier.
All right, no problem. I'll co-sign that prayer too.
Indeed, man. Indeed. So when I started our company, I started it while serving on active duty, because no matter where you are, whatever job you undertake, there is a start date and there's going to be an end date for whatever career you desire to take on. And I knew that after serving so many years that I would eventually have to retire. And with that, I wanted to be able to, after retirement, call my own shots and do what I want to do, and do it the way that I wanted it to be done, and have complete sovereignty over my business. And so what I did was I didn't hesitate. So for those of you who are out there who may be working jobs, I know there is this compelling notion for most people to say, hey, I'm going to walk off my job and I'm going to start my own business, and I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to be my own boss and do all these great things in my business. It's going to be profitable, and I'm going to work really hard, and I'm going to beat the odds of not being a business or a company that is not productive, or that is at a good profit margin in the first few years. We're going to beat the odds, and we're not going to be that company that is not profitable. And so people go off with these notions, and they leave their jobs, and then they end up starting a business, and they find out that it's tough, and that it takes a little bit of revenue, and it takes money to get things running the way that they desire, and the marketing and all these fees to trying to build a business. And then they end up being frustrated after a few years of starting an entrepreneurial effort, and it seems like they're not getting anywhere, and then they end up being in debt. And so not only are they frustrated, but they're in debt as a result of trying to do business. Well, I want to offer a different way to look at those things, and this is the way that I looked at it always. I decided that I would build a business and not go into debt. And I did that by staying on my full-time job, and I looked at my 24-hour cycle of existence. That meant I looked at every day and how many hours I have and to commit to my family, and how much time I could actually commit to building my business. And that's what I did. I stayed on my job, and I'm still on my job, and I love my job. I love what I do. And I built a business based on the amount of time that I had to devote towards building the business. Now, being on my job enabled me to structure my business in a way, because I do consulting. Most of my materials and things that licenses and things of that nature, I don't have a problem with trying to accrue those things because I still have income coming in. Okay, I still have income coming in from my day job, and so what I did was I did it smartly. I saved money before I started my business, and I did not quit my day job because I still enjoy doing it. And so that enabled me to build a business completely debt-free. And that is the power of entrepreneurship, because when I built my business debt-free, now it allows me to leverage the structure that's in place and be able to, as I go out and I deliver seminars and do teaching sessions, it enables me to reap a tremendous profit from not having to pay a whole lot of bills and not having to struggle with debt. And so everything that I'm able to go out and do, I'm able to recoup better profits by simply not being in debt and being on my job, having consistent income coming in. So that was one of the first things I did, and it's worked out for me extremely well. The second thing I did when I initially started out as a sole proprietor, and I was doing things under my name. Okay, and while there are some benefits to doing that, I wasn't reaping the benefits of having an LLC and leveraging the tax structure and the itemization of expenses and things of that nature to the degree that I could have been by not being a limited liability company. And so what I did was I said, you know what, I'm losing money here because I still got to pay taxes. So I need to not do business in my own name and start a company and start doing business in the name of my company. And that provided significant cash advantages, tax advantages for me along the way. And so if you're out there and if you're thinking about walking off your job, please reconsider before doing that. If you want to start a business, see where you can manage your time between your job and your family or other important things in your life, and see where you can actually fit building that business into your 24-hour period, and try to go into business debt-free if at all possible. And then secondly, legitimize your business. Become an LLC if you haven't done so already. That way you'll get the benefits of that tax structure through being a business entity. And thirdly, I would say for any budding entrepreneur is you have to have a mindset of saving what you earn to the highest extent possible. So what I typically do is I set aside a portion of income to pay my taxes up front. I already know that whenever payments come in, I set a portion first of all, I set 10% aside to tithe. That's the contribution. That's my generous contribution. Is what I owe God for blessing me with the opportunity. And then I set aside a portion for my taxes. So if you don't remember anything I said today, remember, set aside tithes and set aside taxes. If you're a business owner, it works for me, and I'm sure that it'll work for you as well. And then thirdly, you need to set up some type of structure to where you can reinvest your dividends into your own business, whether that be through a brokerage account, whether that be through setting up an IRA, your own IRA for your business. And those are the things that are going to really be beneficial later on. It's going to help you accrue wealth like people are doing for years. And it's just that kind of knowledge and information we just haven't been privy to. And it causes us not to be as far along in the business as we could be.
Right. So it was something you just mentioned a second ago, talking about setting aside, tithes first, but then your taxes. And I think that's one of the big things that we overlook in the black community when it comes to just how taxes work. A lot of us, and me definitely included, grew up thinking, when you get your job and you have your W-4, you set that thing up to where, they take out max taxes from your check, because at the end of the year, you're going to get this big sum of money back. And that's kind of like that's the one big windfall a year that you get from having set up, single zero dependence on your taxes, and then you get this big check back. And that's still commonly how people think about, taxes. And what we don't really talk about is that you're basically then you're paying the government, before you ever get to see your money, way more money than you actually owe them. And they're holding on to that money interest free all year long away from you. And then you get that money back at the end of the year, but there's no interest on it. You basically you gave the government your money to hold on to for a while. And you compare that to what you were talking about of, you have your own business, which means that, the government's not taking your money. You get paid directly from your clients, and then you set aside the money that the government's going to get as far as their part, and you pay that money, quarterly or monthly, depending on how much, the taxes are. But when you're the one who's setting aside the money for the taxes, let's say it's 3 months, every 3 months you're paying quarterly. That means for 3 months that money is sitting in an account and it's drawing interest, and the government gets its piece and you get to hold on to the interest. And it's a completely different way of structuring your life out of that rat race of, you work until April to pay the government, and then the rest of it you eventually see. In the entrepreneurship world, it's, you work, you get your money, and you set aside the piece that's going to eventually have to go to them, but you're still getting all that money up front, and you're deciding how you're going to invest the overflow, if you will, as a business owner. And it's a type of freedom that, a lot of us in the black community, we never know our entire lives, and we're never taught our entire lives, because we didn't grow up in households where that was just the normal way of looking at business and money. So if you don't mind, can you expand a little bit more on that subject of managing all of that, and the difference between being an employee and being a business owner, because you're living in a world where you're seeing both sides of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So first, this is what I recommend every business owner do. Spend the money and get a CPA. So there's two things you need. You're going to need a lawyer, and you're going to need a CPA. Okay. And there's ways to get those services at reasonable costs. Maybe whether it's through an annual membership fee, or you solicit and go out and just do your own shopping and find companies that offer those services for you. But you won't last too long in business if you don't have a CPA and if you don't have a lawyer that can help you through some of the legal business of owning a business, or legalities of owning a business, should I say. What I did when I started my business, I hired a CPA because I didn't understand tax rules. I didn't understand the tax laws and how most businesses are able to turn greater. It's people who are wealthy, who have large profit margins. They understand the benefit of being able to pay as little taxes legally. Hear me again, legally. To pay as little in taxes as possible. And there are ways I discovered through having a CPA that there are ways that you can set yourself up to really reap benefits of paying very little in taxes, paying your part, paying your share that the government says that you have to pay, but not overpaying. And most people, like you said earlier, they overpay taxes because any better. They don't know what can be itemized, what can be deducted. Because, if you're not exposed to that world and you understand that world, you understand tax laws, you're going to do what you think is in your best interest to do out of fear. And a lot of it is fear. Well, I don't want, because we've heard most of our lives that all you got to do, there's two things that are certain in life, you're going to die and you're going to pay taxes, If I can put it politely, we'd say we're a little different in the South.
Right.
But those are things that are going to happen. And so what every entrepreneur needs to understand is how to take advantage of the tax laws so they can put themselves in a greater position. Now, and you need to get a tax expert. You get someone who is well-versed in that arena that can help you along and help rate your business with integrity, but also with a mindset of ensuring that you get the most out of your business by paying as little in taxes as possible. I used 1-800-ACCOUNTANT. I'm not endorsing any accounting firm, but they're pretty popular. I used them and I made sure that I walked through the process and it fit what I needed in the time. But there's many other accounting firms out there, and accountants, even some that are independent accountants that'll be able to help any entrepreneur along. And don't that just because you're small that you don't need an accountant, or just because you're not making enough money in your business that you don't need an accountant. Yes, you do, because they can give you some insight on some things that'll help you structure your tax structure in the most profitable way and the best way for your company. So it's one of the things I always advise people to do as it relates to taxes. And the asset that your company owns, and in terms of your car, your vehicle, things of that nature, and the things that you get in when you start getting in that itemization, make sure that you're keeping track of that and have a system to be able to handle all of that is also important. So that's essentially my advice to anyone that's in that has a business or is thinking about starting a business. You're going to need somebody to handle those taxes for you.
Yeah, well, and especially now, with the new tax law that came out, it is clearly and very heavily skewed intentionally for the business owner, whether that be the large corporation or the small business owner. I mean, there's no uncertain terms in that law. It basically said, if you don't own a business, you need to think about how you can own a business, because that's really where these benefits are. And I think with that, not only did it skew things in that direction, but it kind of more complicated them as well, while trying to make it better for a small business owner. So I think that even further kind of lays out why, you need to have a lawyer who understands, tax law, contract law, and business law. But then you got to have an accountant, somebody who really can dig into what changes, because taxes are constantly changing with politics, and they're the ones who, it's their job to keep up with, what can I deduct now? What can't I deduct now? What things do I need to purchase for my business in this fiscal year that is going to give me a tax break for the coming year versus things that I might want to put off for a year or two? I don't know. That's their job, is to try to figure that stuff out for us. So yeah, I appreciate that insight.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right, and they will help you. They will help you mark and chart your path towards a positive end. If you lay out, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's my expectations. Here's what's happening in reality. Help me structure my company. Help me structure my small business in a way that I can be profitable, and they'll help you get there. And one of the most important parts of owning a business is understanding that tax structure. And along with that, you had mentioned earlier through our conversation, you talked about, in essence, how we wait on that once a year tax return to come so that we could possibly get back a little bit more money, and we do our when we make our elections as to how we want to pay taxes and things of that nature. We are locked into that system, and we need to get out of that system. We need to know in our community that there's a better system that's in operation that can work for us if we leverage it. And not only when you pay, when you set aside and you on your terms pay taxes as opposed to letting the government decide how much you'll pay, and most times we overpay, like you said, you can take that money that you have made a reasonable income and profits in return from your business. I would also recommend that you reinvest it not only into the business, but decide, open up a brokerage account, go out and research other companies that you like, that may be in a different industry, and buy stocks, buy shares in those companies with the money that you make from the profit from your business. and because you want to have your money working at all times. You don't want to just have it sitting in the bank, invest and drawing 0.01% interest in a bank. You want to put it back into the market, reinvest those dividends to where that money really grows for you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm serious. I'm taking notes on that. That was a powerful sentence. You need to have your money working at all times. I wrote that one down.
Yeah, man, have it working at all times. And so that's what and what I do, so that I can ensure that even if tomorrow, if I shut my company down, the proceeds for my company are still working for me.
I love it. So real quick, before we go to my next question I have for you, I wanted to give a quick shout out. So you shouted out, you use 1-800-ACCOUNTANT, which would be a good one. I wanted to give a shout out to one of our Buy Black podcast listeners out there, was Cindy McGee, and she runs Next Gen Tax Services. You can find her on Facebook at Next Gen Tax Services. That's the easiest way to kind of get into her website. And so if you were looking for a CPA who does accounting all through the year, but right now it's tax season, obviously, she would be a great one to reach out to. I'm going to be connecting with her to do my taxes this year. So yeah, just a big plug right there for one of our listeners out there with Next Gen Tax Services, Cindy McGee. So back to the show. I wanted to ask you, from all of this advice that you just gave, moving from being a sole proprietorship to being an LLC, make sure you have a good lawyer, having a good CPA, putting that money aside for the taxes and everything. So we have those. I want to ask you what is the one other major thing, the one thing that you did in establishing your business that had the most powerful impact on your success? What would that be?
I believe perhaps the one thing that I did, again, and I have to go back to this, it is me figuring out a way to start a business with little to no overhead. It's the greatest feeling in the world. And I know that it's not possible to do that in every business, in every entrepreneurial effort. It's not possible to do that because most people have products that they have to spend money to get and make and develop and then distribute, and then the marketing aspect of it. Don't get me wrong, I did have startup expenses, but they were very, very, it was very, very small. And here's the other thing that I did. Anything that that I could do myself and do it with excellence, I did it myself. I have a knack for doing graphics and things of that nature, and making my own marketing materials and putting together my own products. So I pay graphic designers and I pay marketers and all those folks to kind of do the lion's share of the work. I could do that myself. And so anything that you do yourself to cut costs, but do it with excellence. And I'm not talking, I'm not talking about things that are just thrown together, but anything that you can do yourself, that you have a natural ability for or an innate gift to do those things yourself. You don't have to outsource everything. And the other thing that I learned was, we live in a social world, and most people will go out and they'll spend tons of money on marketing, and they'll spend tons of money on creating the perfect website, and that's where their focus will be. And they'll get high-end machinery, and they'll get high-end things. My thing is, first of all, leverage the things that are free first before you go out and spend money on all those other things. It costs you nothing to go up and just talk to a person about your business. It costs you nothing to do that one-on-one engagement or stand up somewhere and make an announcement when you're in a, say for instance, when you're at a small group Bible study, or you're at a small group whatever, you can market your business through word of mouth and say, hey, I'm offering services in this capacity, and that costs you nothing to do that. Also, if there is to reduce overhead and things of that nature, not only do things that you can do and do with excellence, not only leverage opportunities to speak about your company in public whenever the opportunity is afforded. Thirdly, what I recommend that people do as well to help their business become more profitable right out of the gates is to ask somebody who is in the same field as you what they did. A lot of times we think we have to do all the research on our own. We think we have to do line by line, A to Z analysis on our own, when there are many people like yourself that have platforms and forums to where budding entrepreneurs can just ask somebody else that has traveled that path for advice and for guidance. And don't be afraid to do that at every turn. I'm not afraid to say there's a lot that I do not know about business, but every day I'm seeking out people who have that corporate mindset, who have been successful in it. And I ask them, hey, what did you do to be successful? What did you do as it relates to taxes? How did you get the word out as it relates to your business? And just asking those questions, not being shy about it, and asking people who have more knowledge than you, who maybe and some of them may work in different fields, but there can be a cross-pollination of ideas that'll be fruitful for you if you just ask the question. And those things cost you no money to do. And that probably was the help me be able to launch and be successful at it.
Yeah, absolutely. That to me is probably the most overlooked thing is, I say this all the time. Every other demographic, that is how they grow. Nobody does anything on their own. They ask the question, and a lot of times not only do they get the answer to the question, but that person will literally handhold them and walk them through the process of making the success happen and connect them with the other people who help them be successful. It's something that I think is missing in our community on both sides. Of a lot of times we don't want to reach out and ask somebody else for help, but then it's true that some of us, we make that, we create that success for ourselves, and then we hoard that information and we don't want to go look for people to give it to. And I think on both sides we've got to be more active with that. Got to be more actively doing what you just said, finding those resources and bending their ear and just trying to glean what they have inside of them. But also, as we figure out the success tips, we got to do what you've done and come out, find platforms and places where we can actually share that knowledge with each other. So turning the corner to the last questions that I have for you, what is the biggest challenge that you have faced in creating your business, and how have you either overcome it, or what is the greatest thing that you've learned from it?
Well, it's a good question, man. What is the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge that I have in my business is really time. It is time. It is finding time within a business schedule, and that's one of the cons of having a day job. But finding time, a good portion of time, to work on my business and concentrate on it, because there's certain things in business that you have to refine. Okay, I deliver products, and my courses, they have to be updated, and I need to find time throughout the day to update, to make those course updates and to develop the curriculum based on demand. That is a challenge for me, and it's going to be, and I would venture to say that it'd be a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs, is just finding that time and knowing where you're going to get the most equity out of certain hours in the day, And so what I've learned to do to overcome that challenge is I work my day job. I set aside a certain amount of time each day for my family. That's their time. It's protected time. And then I set aside a small amount of time each day to work on my business, and I try not to go over the time that is allotted. That's a great challenge for me. Now, another challenge, and I just want to add this, is another challenge for me is really getting the word out to the target audience that I'm trying to reach. Social media is great. However, everybody's on social media. So, in one way or another. So how do you get the word out to your target audience? And what I had to do was I had to get people that were around me to flood me with ideas of how to market and how to reach the masses at low cost, and got them to do a little bit of word-of-mouth advertising and paid them for their time. And that's been working out great for me. But that was a challenge early on, and it was getting the word out and reaching people to let them know, hey, I'm here. I can provide this service for you. And because of time constraints, I wasn't able to go out and do that face-to-face. I wasn't able to go out and visit churches and visit businesses, and I can't be everywhere at once. And so what I did was had people to go out and do that for me. And it's been, and I'll tell you what, person-to-person engagement, people who, human flyers, that is the best marketing you can ever have, is when you got humans going to other humans, selling your product or advertising your service. And that engagement has paid tremendous dividends for me, but that was challenged early on. And the learning outcomes from all of that was that personal touch and human engagement is probably perhaps the best method of getting your service, your product, your business name, especially when you do a high quality job in the mouths of, in the hands of customers.
Awesome. That's wonderful. That I found that true as well for the podcast. When I first was trying to grow this show, I've done everything from, take out Facebook ads to either doing, Google AdWords or Bing ads and things like that. And, you can see the trends on things like that. And, for as many people as it gets in front of. A few of them will go to the website, they bounce off the website, and it's really just, not very effective. But on the other side to that, the emails that I get and the folks who actually pick up the show and pick up the phone to call me, almost every time it's somebody who connected through somebody else. I had a listener a few months ago who reached out, and we've been in contact, back and forth with some ideas that she's had. But then I ended up getting an email from a friend of hers who was wanting to start a podcast, and she said, my friend told me you're the person I need to talk to because I want to do this thing. That what you're talking about, that word of mouth, that is the most powerful thing out there. Now, I had never thought about what you were saying, which is intentionally using word of mouth marketing, almost like you would do any other type of advertising, paying people for the time that they invest to do word of mouth marketing for you. I've never heard of that before. Can you take a few minutes to kind of explain how did you find those people, and how do you compensate them for doing that? Because I think that's a genius idea.
Yeah. So this is what I did. So again, a lot of my leadership consulting comes in the forms of seminars where I go out. I do mobile training teams, and that means that we come to your organization. We show up in our Total Leadership Solutions polo shirts and jackets, and we set up. If you don't have AV capabilities, we set up on site. We bring our own stuff, and we bring our own products, and all the customer or client has to do is to show up. And so, because we're mobile like that, we can set up in any organization, and we plug and play. And people like that aspect of it, right? They like the fact that, hey, I don't have to go anywhere. All I have to do is carve out a block of time, and they'll show up, and they'll be here, and we will get what we need out of this leadership training session. And so what I did was, I was like, man, you know what? I really need to be inside of those organizations and have human-to-human contact with a lot of the churches and a lot of the people in the community or the target client base that I want to serve. And so I knew that cold calling, phone calls don't work that well because people are busy, and you might not always get the leader of that organization on the phone. But there's something to be said about when a person shows up and they have a solution to your problem, and they've shown up at your doorstep. There's something to be said about that level of contact as it relates to the marketing scheme. And so what I did was I said, you know what, I can't be at all these places. Let me see if there's anybody interested in doing this work for me. And I said, what I'll do is I can pay them for their time. I can show them my system, show it how it works, and give them materials, and they'll show up, and they'll offer our services on site. And it's harder to refuse a person in person. And so I said, what I'll do, and what I'll do is that I'll pay you guys for your time. I don't want you to do this pro bono. And most people, they're like, I just want to be a part of what you're doing. And so, but I'm able to give them fair compensation for the amount of time that they're spending and effort that they're putting into that. And it works well. It's just been working well. It's kind of like the old school Kirby vacuum cleaners. Now, people, you remember that? I don't know if you.
Oh, yeah. I got a friend I used to work with. He sold Kirby's.
Yeah. So people bought vacuum cleaners that didn't even need vacuum cleaners. Just because the salesman or the salesperson was so convincing. And what I've learned through my company is, hey, that works for them. I'm sure it can work for me, and it has worked for me tremendously. And even when I don't have time to call, when I don't have time to email, these people are able to do that for me, and I pay them a fair price for their time. And there are so many people that are willing to do it because it's a source of income for them. It's a little side gig that they don't mind doing. And the challenge is that you have to find people who can represent you well. And so you have to screen the people that you use to be able to go out and do those things. But I've been fortunate, I've been blessed to be able to find the right people who will go out and represent me well. I've trained them on my approach and how they need to pitch our services and our products. And I've also leveraged the power of lunch meetings and dinner meetings. So some folks that do the word of mouth advertising, some of them, all they do is set up meetings with potential clients, and they'll go out and they'll go through their contact list, which keeps me from having to maintain one. They'll go through their contact list and they'll just set up meetings. And what I do is once they set up the meeting, we'll go out to dinner somewhere with a potential client, and we'll show them our products and our services. And it's really a low-cost effort, man. I mean, and so most of them now some people will say, well, how do you pay people for doing all of that? I mean, don't you run out of money just trying to pay people? Well, we work on an award-based system, and what I do is I have the folks that are working for me, once they land a contract, then they get a percentage of that contract.
Very nice. So that way, their effectiveness is going to affect the amount of money they can make, but it's not costing you to just have them out there.
Absolutely.
Rotating and interacting with people. They're guaranteed to make money when your company makes money, and that way it's a beneficial thing for both. But the incentive is for them to be effective, not for them to say, well, you get paid for every 100 people you contact, or
there you go.
Every 20 meetings you get me. That doesn't really incentivize them to be good. You're saying you get paid when I get paid, so they're incentivized to be better and maybe even talk to fewer people, but actually help you win the contract as opposed to just going out and shotgun blasting. I think that's really smart.
Absolutely, and it's worked. And again, the challenge for me now is having enough time.
Because it's worked too well.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it just works. It just works. Nothing can replace human to human contact. It's just irreplaceable.
Man. Well, I tell you, there's been at least 7 or 8 different mind-blowing just tips that you've given in this episode. That's been awesome, and that one completely unexpected. I'm taking that one in notes, y'all folks in the audience. If you're having a problem marketing and it's costing you too much money, you're not seeing the return, man, try that strategy because that sounds great. So let's come to kind of wrap this thing up and talk about the final questions. First thing is, what's coming next? What's coming down the pike for you, and how can our folks in the audience help you with what you have coming down the line?
What I'm doing now is I am plugging into a lot of the venues that are leadership venues and leadership networks that are in and around the greater Omaha, Nebraska area. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to be, in essence, the outsourcing, the outsourcing contractor for a lot of the small business organizations in this area, particularly churches. I do a lot of faith-based leadership programs, a lot of faith-based leadership seminars, as there's a great need for it. However, and every church has their annual training, quarterly training that they tend to do for their servant leaders and to posture themselves for greater success. And right now, I'm trying to work with and partner with local business leaders, Chamber of Commerce, and folks in the local area that have a need for these types of training seminars that are going to add value to the organization and be able to create awareness that, hey, we're out here and we're providing a high-quality product at a fair price that is going to add value for that organization instantly and going to serve them well for years to come. So that's what's coming down the pike for me. There's a couple of different venues throughout the remainder of the year that we will be at that we'll be setting up and talking to folks throughout those at those events and at those venues. In the meanwhile, what I like folks to do, and it's the toughest challenge for most people to do, is to go out and check out our website, www.dr.julianthomascompany.com. Check us out there. Look at our services. I also do personal development and coaching in the areas of personal one-on-one type stuff. I don't do a whole lot of it because of time, but I do offer that service as well. But hopefully we'll be able to, in the near future, bring on some experienced coaches that have the same mindset and can represent our company well, that'll be able to work with our company, and we'll outsource those folks and taking the same concept that they come to you, that you don't have to go anywhere, that they'll come to you. How great would it be to have a service available at your doorstep, people that are going to help you live a better life and move forward in your leadership journey. And so those are some of the things that's coming down the road for us. And in the meanwhile, we can just get the word out. Hey, you got a young man here in the greater Omaha area that is teaching leadership and is teaching it at a high level, and that is will help you get the results that you're looking for in your church, in your businesses, as it relates to developing leaders that can push your vision forward.
Love it. And let me make sure I'm clear about this. So your focus now is you're digging into the leadership in the organizations here in the greater Omaha area, but your company functions nationally, correct?
It absolutely does.
Okay.
We, again, with this concept of mobile training teams, I'm able to be anywhere around the continental U.S. Where folks have a desire to bring in a leadership specialist, a leadership educator and trainer for their companies or for their organizations. That mobile training team, MTT, mobile training team concept is available to anyone in the continental United States for now. Will it get overseas? But for right now, CONUS is where the large part of our work is being done.
Awesome.
And so mobile training teams on site.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to make sure. So if you're out there in the audience, guys, and you're a part of a company, or you have a company where you feel like your executives, your managers need better leadership, Dr. Thomas is here. If you are part of an organization, whether it's a nonprofit or a church, as you heard, he does a lot in faith organizations, and you feel like your organization could use some better leadership opportunities, connect with him and connect with your leadership and see if they've even thought about, bringing in an outside expert to improve the environment, things like that. Another thing I want to toss out here, Dr. Thomas has a couple of books. One is called Think, Plan, and Succeed Big, and the other one is Learning Leadership from Jesus. So a couple of really great books out there as well for you to learn more about the subjects that we talked about. I think we hit both of those subjects today. And so with that, real quick, before we get to our final question, tell us what are the ways that people can get in contact with you. So check you out at the website, but where can they find you? Email, social media? What are the ways that people can get a hold of you for these services?
Absolutely. You can email me at the same, a very similar email address. Email Dr. Julian Thomas Company. That's dr.julian, JulianThomas, company at gmail.com. You can reach us there on the site. If you go to the website, you can also link up there on Facebook, Dr. Julian Thomas. You can reach us there as well. We have a public page for our leadership company that you can reach us on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter, but I am on LinkedIn under the same handle, Dr. Julian Thomas. So wherever you type that in, I'm sure it's not a very common name. You'll be able to find me, but they're on Facebook, Dr. Julian Thomas, and Dr. Julian Thomas Company is the email address, dr.julianthomascompany@gmail.com, and also on our website. You can reach us there.
Perfect. All right, so that brings us to the final question of the show, the always famous last question of Buy Black Podcast. What is your number one piece of advice for folks out there in the audience in our Buy Black Podcast community?
My number one piece of advice is really trust God. Trust God. Trust God. And I say that to people who may not be in the faith community, that we can't do or accomplish anything out of our own will without having some help, some divine help or assistance, even through the form of other human beings, if we don't have that spiritual balance. And one of the things that has helped me along my journey is that I'm a man of faith. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, I'm saved, and I love that because I believe that if you have faith, that you can do the impossible. And whether it's faith-based business or not, you've got to believe in faith if you want to make something happen. So that's my piece of advice. Believe in someone or something if you want it to happen. And that has been, it's served me well over time. And it's my faith in God has allowed me to experience tremendous success. And again, I wrote a book on it. It's called Think, Plan, and Succeed Big. And that word DIG is an acronym. Actually, it means by involving God. It means think, plan, and succeed by involving God. So
that's excellent final advice. That is awesome. Well, hey, everybody, y'all heard it. This has been episode number 32 of the Buy Black Podcast. We got to connect with Dr. Julian Thomas. He laid out 10 to 12 just huge nuggets of gold for us today. Hey, Dr. Thomas, thank you so much for connecting with me. I know we'll be working together a lot more right here in Omaha to connect with these communities and kind of start building and growing our network collaboration here. But I thank you for bringing all of this to our Buy Black Podcast audience.
Sir, thank you so much for having me. And again, I'm honored to be on your show, and I wish you the best in the future, man, and everything that you do.
I really appreciate it. Well, hey, guys, that is it. We are wrapped up, and we will catch you in the next episode. All right, everybody, episode 32 in the books for Buy Black Podcast. As promised, that was an information-filled session with Dr. Julian Thomas. If you need help, if you need support in your organization, or if you see, as Dr. Thomas was saying, in your faith organizations or a nonprofit organization that you're in, that they need better leadership, better organization, or could use the type of workshops that Dr. Thomas offers, definitely reach out to him and schedule a meeting just to find out how his organization, how his company will be able to help you. Hey, before we get out of here, I just wanted to remind you, if you haven't already, download the Buy Black Podcast app. Regardless of what platform you're using right now to listen to the show, downloading the app is going to get you even more connected to the community. From that app, not only will you have access to all the episodes, you'll also get bonus content, and you can contact me via email or phone directly from the app. It is a complete level of access to the show that you don't get anywhere else. Download that Buy Black Podcast app by going to www.buyblackpodcast.com/app, and you'll be able to download either the Apple or the Google version of the app directly from there. Also, I wanted to remind you, we do have t-shirts and coffee mugs that you can get to show your support for the podcast. If you go to buyblackpodcast.com/shop, that's SHOP. Also, I highly encourage you to join the Buy Black Podcast Community Facebook group. If you join that group, you'll be able to connect with over 100 other listeners to the show and have more in-depth conversations about the topics that we cover week to week. Email me if you want more information on how to get in contact with our guests, to learn how you can be featured on the show with your business, or if you need help getting your business off the ground. And with that, I really appreciate you guys sticking with me week to week on this show. As we continue to grow, the numbers are going up, and that is all thanks to you out there spreading the message of Buy Black Podcast in the community. Let's continue to keep it rolling in 2018. I will catch you in the next episode.